Sources tonight are the co-authors of the petition that the president and speaker are not calling for its passage. Democratic Congressman Khanna of California and Republican Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky. And thank you both for being here. Congressman Massie, let me start with you because obviously you've been the focus of the White House's hire, as you are well aware. But when you hear those women today on Capitol Hill, and then you hear what the president has to say, who do you think has more sway with your Republican colleagues? Those women or the president?
Well, with my Republican constituents, those women have the most credibility, and I think it's disrespectful to call it a hoax. This is not a hoax, not at all, and it's not going to go away. If the president wants to highlight the things that he's trying to do in the White House, then he should just call for the vote and release all of these files, and then he can move on. But they want to drag this out.
Congressman Khanna, just on those women for a moment, I mean, that was such a striking show of force from all of them today. What was it like for you to hear from them?
You know, I was just moved on a human level. It really, for me, was totally not about politics. I was standing a few feet away from them while they were speaking out. Almost half of them were in tears. They were talking about being raped at the age of 13 or 14. They were talking about being forced to get other high school and junior high school friends of theirs, knowing that they were going to face sexual assault. It was heartbreaking. And frankly, they are bringing this country together. They are bringing people, whether they're progressive, independents, moderates, MAGA supporters, together to say, we need to release these files. We need justice for the rich and powerful men who abuse them. And this is not about politics. This is about morality.
Congressman Massie, why do you think those stories, I mean, they don't seem to be, but why do you think that they're not resonating with the White House?
Well, they're resonating with the public in my district and all across the country. And in fact, they were resonating in the White House 9 months ago when the Attorney General said they would release the files, when the Vice President said they would release the files, when the FBI Director said they would release the files, when Trump's own children said that these files needed to be released. Why the 180-degree turn here from the administration? I think there are rich and powerful people who've always been beyond the reach of the law, or thought that they were, who want to remain there. And they're donors. They are donors to Republicans and Democrats. And we need to tell them, I'm sorry, you are going to be accountable to the law.
Well, actually, Congressman Massie, can I ask you about that? Because you're talking about people who don't maybe want their names out there associated with Jeffrey Epstein. These women today, one thing that they said that they are willing to do if these documents don't get released is compile their own, basically, list of people around Jeffrey Epstein and release that. You actually said tonight that you have a plan to potentially help them with that.
Yeah, so the survivors said that they had decided to compile their own list, but the reality is if they try to release that list, they're going to be sued into homelessness. They will be attacked. They will have death threats. And so what my colleague Marjorie Taylor Greene volunteered to do, and I've volunteered to do as well, is to read that list on the floor of the House of Representatives, because our founders put into the Constitution speech or debate immunity, which says that we can't be prosecuted for what we say on the floor of the House. So we're willing to help those survivors get those names out there. And as my colleague Khanna has said, we trust the public to determine who were donors to the Epstein Scholarship Fund and who were users of the women who were exposed to sexual abuse, to differentiate between those two groups of people.
Congressman Khanna, do you support that, reading the names from these women on the House floor?
I do, but I don't think it needs to come to that. I mean, there shouldn't be burdened to have to come up with the list. You know, one of the things that struck me is some of the survivors said that they themselves had not seen the files. One person pleaded with America saying she wants to try to understand her own memories and she wants to see these files to be able to piece that together. Look, this was such an emotional moment that after I spoke, after the survivors, Marjorie Taylor Greene came over and gave me a hug. I mean, people should have seen the humanity there. And I don't know, after hearing those women, why we just don't release the files. I mean, it actually would make the president look good. He could come out and say, no other president has released the files. I'm releasing the files. My focus right now, and I think anyone who was at that press conference, is how do we get justice and closure for those survivors?
Well, and Speaker Johnson met with some of these survivors yesterday in an hours-long meeting, some of their family members as well. He still does not support your discharge petition. He's saying that actually, Congressman Massie, he called it inartfully written, I believe was his, inartfully drafted. And Chairman Comer said that it would basically, that their investigation they're doing is 4 to 5 steps ahead of where this would put you. What is your response to that?
Well, I support everything that Chairman Comer is doing. The problem is the DOJ is curating everything that they send to the Oversight Committee. So if you drill down into those documents that the Oversight Committee put on the website, you can see that they've been redacted. All of the flight logs have been redacted, and they're running the risk of seeing what they saw with Pam Bondi's binders, that everything that's been released is the same thing that's already been released. And in response to the Speaker's accusation that our resolution was inartfully drafted, well, his placebo resolution, which has no teeth to it, lifted entirely 3 pages from our own resolution. I mean, my staff wrote that, and they were very honored to see that the Speaker used their exact language in his resolution.
Kaitlan, isn't the only thing that should matter here also what the survivors think? They were asked, what did they support? And they said they supported the oversight investigation, but they support the Massie-Khanna bill. And they were asked point blank about that, and all of them raised their hands. And that should be what the country listens to. I mean, their lawyers have read it, they have read it, and they're saying that's what they want.
Have you heard if what those survivors said today changed any other House Republicans' minds? Has anyone else said that they are willing to sign on to this?
Well, I've talked to a few of them, and they were compelled in our direction. But there's an immense pressure campaign from the White House on Republican members right now. So I really think you gotta give some credit to the 3 Republican women, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, and Nancy Mace, who, in spite of all the threats from the White House, which are still continuing, went and did the right thing. They're standing up for women by standing up for this resolution.
What do those threats look like? What kind of pressure campaign are we talking about here?
Well, I'm feeling it myself in my own district. There's been $2.5 million of ads run against me by 3 billionaires who are mega donors to the Republican Party. And one of them's actually, I'm not going to say on Epstein's list, but he's in Epstein's black book. So I've been taking the brunt of that myself. I think what's being run against me is a threat to other Republicans to try to keep them from doing what I'm doing.
And are you worried that it's going to be successful here?
Well, you know, I've opposed the president before, and he said I should be thrown out of the GOP, and in that race I got 81% of the vote. So in some sense I have the Trump antibodies, but I'm definitely going to get a booster shot here.
Well, the White House obviously has been pushing back on that and pushing on that very strongly. But can I just ask both of you, when Trump's calling it a hoax, one thing he said today, Congressman Khanna, he said that no matter what is released, nothing will ever be enough, basically, sufficient for people like the 2 of you. What do you say to that?
Again, this is not about the 2 of us. This is about the survivors. And I think they made clear what they want. They want the files released with the financial information, with the witness memos, with an understanding of who covered up for Jeffrey Epstein and Maxwell. I mean, there were rich and powerful people who knew that Epstein was raping and abusing young girls and said nothing. And there were rich and powerful people who prevented him from being prosecuted. And then there were rich and powerful people who got some of these survivors farmed out to them. That's what they said. They want that exposed, and they want accountability. And I just want to say about Thomas Massie, look, he's a profile in courage. I hope I don't hurt him in his primary by saying that. But this is about big money. It's about big money that denied justice for the survivors. It's about big money that's stopping these Epstein files to be released. And it's big money that's threatening people like Thomas Massie or any person or any Republican who's willing to sign that discharge petition.
Can I ask you, Congressman Khanna, do you believe that this effort is losing steam, as some people have suggested tonight?
No, I'm actually confident we're going to get to 218. I don't want to go into all the strategy because when we've been more transparent about it, it's just led to a Trump response. But we have a plan. I'm very, very confident that we're going to get there.
Yeah,
and Congressman Massie, you too?
Yeah, I'm very confident. I confided to one of the White House individuals who's working against me right now. I said, you know, my mistake was getting 12 Republican co-sponsors on this bill before we were eligible to get signatures, because I just telegraphed to you the 12 people that you needed to whip. And he kind of laughed and he said, yeah, but we're going to get to 218. This is going to happen within a few weeks. And I think they're going to panic here. There's going to be a lot of pressure again on the 3 women who have co-sponsored this on the Republican side to take their names off. But I think they're going to stay strong.
Your colleague, Congressman Massie, Marjorie Taylor Greene, suggested today that she said to President Trump that he should invite and host the survivors in the Oval Office. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, and the survivors are willing to meet President Trump as well. And I think that would be good for President Trump to humanize these people so that they can see this, he can see the survivors and know that this is not a hoax.
Congressman Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna, an unlikely duo, but really appreciate your time tonight. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kaitlan.